everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright. We got a fun show today. Michigan State head coach Tom Izzo joins us live with the Final Four right around the corner. That'll be fun.
He did tell me he's going to be yelling.
I knew it. Absolutely, and I'm prepared.
And Nick's going to say, I want you to reason with me.
Listen,
I'm going to reason
talk it
with you
through.
back.
Let's just talk it through, Coach.
Like men.
Exactly.
On equal footing.
Exactly right.
Russ and Wilson with an ultimatum for the Seattle Seahawks. That came down yesterday, but we're going to start the program with the NBA champs in action last night. Top two seeds out west, Warriors and Nuggets going at it. Warriors did win the game, 116-102, led by 28 points from Boogie Cousins, giving the Warriors a two-game lead over Denver for a home court advantage in the West. But while they won the game, they lost KD. Kevin Durant ejected in the third quarter for arguing a call, and he was having a great game when it happened, too. KD now just a tech away from a one-game suspension. But let's start with the win. CC, what did Golden State show you last night?
They showed you what Nick talked about when they originally put this team together with Boogie Cousins, that Boogie Cousins was the insurance policy in case they have an injury. Because last night with KD, it's like he got hurt.
Yeah.
So he stepped on someone's foot in the third quarter. He goes out. Oh, man, it's the opportunity for the Denver Nuggets. For the Denver Nuggets. No, because they have too many good players. So, Boogie Cousins is the answer to that. So when KD went off, and you mentioned it, he was having a sensational game. He dominated that second quarter. I need to talk to KD because now I got beef with him. I don't know if he realized we on the East Coast, we like basketball. And we're going to stay up and watch you, bruh. You can't get thrown to the shower.
Right, in a game that could decide the one seed.
Absolutely. So I know what they've been through. I happen to be in Minneapolis when the call went down, when they lose the game, when he holds Big Cat on the way to the hole on that last inbounds play. So it seems as if that KD now, because he's been teammates with Draymond, that he's going to be like Draymond. And last night, it was not needed for him to get thrown out of the game. When he got the tech, I could understand him complaining. They went all the way down to the other end of the court, but he stays at the referee. Like, it was one of those kind of games where the team's not playing well and the coach gets a tech, and then the coach just insists, like, I'm going to get thrown out, I'm going to get the crowd involved, and hope my... And then KD just kept going on until he got
Except they
thrown.
were up by 20, and he was playing great. Like, all right, so on the game, because I know the big focus is going to be on this, on the game for a moment, because it did decide the one seed. The Warriors are now the one seed. They don't have to worry about the Nuggets, and they were never worried about the Nuggets. The Nuggets, Denver fans been mad at this show all year. You guys talk about the Rockets. You guys said the Thunder maybe could be a threat. Now you're saying the Sixers or the Bucks. Why aren't you talking about us? Because you're not a threat. You are the 60-win Hawks. You're a team with a bunch of really good players and no superstar. Oh, what about Jokic? Where was Jokic last night? I know Draymond at the end of the game was looking for him, asking around, has anyone seen Nikola Jokic? Because I didn't see him. Saw Nikola Jokic in the second half, 2 points, 5 turnovers. You're a nice team, Denver, with a great regular season. But Jokic, as I said before, and I will say again, at one point was so underrated, he became overrated. This was a night for stars, and he didn't show up. And now, forget the one seed, Rockets could catch them for the 2 seed. So Denver, we're done with them for now. Now to Kevin Durant. He was ridiculous last night in the best and worst ways. He was ridiculous at the end of the second quarter. 3 monster dunks where he looks like Spider-Man, just going to the rim, seemingly getting longer as he goes, and giving his team energy.
He played for a couple minutes like Giannis.
Absolutely.
He just basically started taking the ball, either three-point line, half court, few dribbles, and he was at the rim.
And when he plays like that, that's when, if you look at it in a snapshot, you're like, well, that should be the best player in the world. Because he can do what Giannis can do while being the best shooting 7-footer ever. He also had a great block on the other end, was doing it all. And then he complains about, it's not like it was a bad no call. It was questionable. He was mad he didn't get this call. Maybe he got fouled. It wasn't blatant. He is whining and yelling and fine. You get a technical. But then he's going after him after getting the technical, and now you're going to get thrown out. You have Boogie trying to stop him.
And this is one of the prominent refs in the NBA. Like, we're going to see him
Yeah.
In the NBA playoffs. So not only Draymond, the rest of these Warriors, Boogie, everything they went through. Now they even got Steph involved in it. Steph's laughing and clowning at the ref.
Pointing and laughing at the ref, which is why they went against him in that Timberwolves game. I never seen an end quite like that, but this, I think, built on that. They were frustrated at the refs from the previous game. They said that ref was the MVP. But Kevin Durant then, listen, these refs are human beings. And when you do what Steph does here, which I've never seen done, point and laugh and taunt the official. When the game, it's not like that was the game-winning shot. That was the game-tying shot. They were going to have to go to overtime, and then the refs kind of gave them.
Right. Well, the reason because KD hit one before that they negated was an unbelievable play. It was just as nice as Steph, and they thought the refs were trying to take the game from them.
And maybe they were. But when I say the refs are human, the refs remembered, of course, Steph pointing and laughing, and then they made a very questionable call that gave the game to the Timberwolves. And you don't think Zarba's going to remember Kevin Durant, after being thrown out, calling him a BAMF? I mean, I can't say any of the words he said. And so, like, I mean, he said it as pointedly as you possibly could. I'll tell you off the air what he said. It was bad stuff.
Okay.
And so, like this
Bamf?
you're going to have to deal with these guys. And I just don't know what KD's so angry about. He didn't get stepped under. It wasn't a situation where it's like, man, I could have gotten seriously hurt. It was a non-call when you're up 20, having a brilliant game in a big game. And to get yourself thrown out and to add another ref that now, because they're human, I don't know if they're going to get the 50-50 calls. That ain't smart. That's not how NBA superstars are supposed to conduct themselves.
What about their actual game and the way they're playing? We've talked all week about when they're going to turn it into, all month, a playoff mode and get ready for the end here. And let's see the team that we're going to see in the playoffs. Now that you say Denver's out of it, is this the team, I mean, aside from the relationship that a lot of this team seems to have with the referees, is this the way, the style of play, the effort they're putting forth that you're going to see in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, listen.
The switch has been flipped?
This is the best version of the Warriors, where the Durant, they were sharing the ball. They had a bunch of beautiful possessions with no dribbles and just pass, open shot. Steph hit some impossible shots. And then late in the game, because Boogie did he had 28, but 16 of those came in the second half. Once KD got thrown out, they went to Boogie more, particularly in the fourth quarter, and he closed it out for him. Like, no, the Warriors, and now they're going to have home court throughout the Western Conference playoffs, and we'll see if they have it in the finals. Depends on who they go up against if they get there. But, yeah, the Warriors are going to go into the playoffs healthy as well, it would appear, which is probably the most important thing for them.
Yes, and I think Draymond, we talked about his shooting during the season. He had a bad toe injury that he was working with. A lot of people didn't talk about. He seems to be healthier, playing better on the defensive end. There were times in last night's game, they looked like the Globetrotters. I mean, it's amazing how well they passed the ball. And it was like, Steph, when he's done, going to hit a trick shot on you. Like, that's how well, and it's as if they hit the switch. A lot of times in sports, people talk about it. But, man, the Warriors won the few teams because of the talent, because of the way they play. They can go to the switch, even with Kevin Durant, their best player in the shower. Maybe not their most important, but I believe they're best.
And to your point on Draymond pre-All-Star break, around 24% from three, just unbelievably bad. Post-All-Star break, 35%. And they don't need him to be 38% like he was the 73 win year. They just need him to be to where you can't play 14 feet off him and play 4-on-5. So that's important. Bogut only played 5 minutes, but gave him good minutes. He also gave Nikola Jokic work because Jokic only plays one end of the court. Like, this was a depressing loss for Denver, a very good win for Golden State. And the only reason there is anything negative to talk about it is because Kevin Durant acted a fool for no reason.
All right, Warriors win thanks to just about everyone on their team. Thunder won thanks to one guy, Russell Westbrook. He had an historic performance last night. We'll talk about that next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We're back right after this. Welcome back. We'll talk Russell Westbrook in a second, but first, Nuggets Warriors. Steph splits the D, hesitates, delivers the nice pass to Alfonso McKinney.
Now, Steph's improved his dribbling. He just put on a little show right here. Finds him in the corner.
Steph was his shooting numbers were.
They give you a lot of liberties dribbling the basketball now, being able to turn the basketball over, being able to hold it on the bottom.
Oh, yeah, a little palming violation.
Kings and Rockets, Daniel House Jr., nice pass from James Harden, and takes flight.
Now, I was shocked about this one. I knew he was a good athlete. I was like, he's not going Oh, yes, he was.
He took off from the semicircle now.
He was inviting him to try to block this one.
Absolutely. He had a couple monster dunks in this game. One on an oop from Harden.
I love these NBA players when they get dunked on. They just turn their head and run the other way.
Absolutely. Like it didn't happen.
Here we go, Lakers Thunder. Paul George, the steal the other way, and the nice 360 to finish that off.
And the 360 the other way. A reverse 360. I like that.
Reverse 360, Statue of Liberty 360, keeping the ball up there the whole time. Larry Nance Sr. style. I like that. I like that, PG.
All right, sticking with the Thunder, they beat the Lakers 119-103 last night. Smaller story to the bigger story of one Russell Westbrook. Historic night for Russ. 20 points, 20 rebounds, 21 assists. Only the second 20-20-20 game in NBA history. The other one belonging to Wilt Chamberlain. Also, Russ's 31st triple-double of the season, but clearly the most memorable. He called the feat overwhelming. Nick, how do you put Russ's night in a bit of perspective?
All right, so if there were no context to it, it would be spectacular. You said it. There's only been one 20-20-20 game in the history of the league, and it was by the guy who rewrote the record book, Wilt Chamberlain. But when you understand the context, that he went out there last night calling his shot, that he was going to do this. Why did he call his shot? People have seen in the news there was the tragic murder of the rapper, philanthropist Nipsey Hussle this week in L.A. So Nipsey was a reformed gang member. His set with the Crips was rolling 60s. And he now has did a lot of outreach in Los Angeles to get former gang members or current gang members off the streets in either school or in businesses to help the crime in South LA. Russ went out and said he was going to do this. 20-20-20 gets you to 60. Set when they tried to sub him out of the game late and he was a couple rebounds away, he said no.
Yeah, with a minute left, yeah.
He knew where he was statistically. When he got to the threshold, he started shouting, "This is for Nip." He said in the post-game interview, 20 plus 20 plus 20 for his friend who was senselessly murdered on Sunday evening. This is, to me, the basketball equivalent of the Babe Ruth calling your shot. No one's ever had a game like this since Wilt. Only one in NBA history. And he has the ability to say, I'm going to do it. I am going to set my career high in rebounds. Never had his ties career high in rebounds. 21 assists. To do that in the context of it, this is why I will always cut Russ some slack on the inefficiency, on the bad shots, because he is such a singular player in NBA history on his ability to fill up the box score every single night. There's not another player, I would argue, in league history that could go out and say, I am, through hell or high water, going to get 15, 15, 15. And he went 20, 20, 20, and he now locked up averaging a triple-double for the third straight season. It's unbelievable what he's done.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times we just take it for granted. Like, we don't really look at the numbers. But a number of times through the last year and a half, you've been like, oh, what is this? This is 1 of 5. This is 1 of 3. This is 1 of 2. That's what he did last night.
Yep.
And what it is, it's nice that he was able to channel, because as an athlete, we have these platforms to be able to stand up for a lot of different things. But he has a real connection to the situation there in Los Angeles, born and raised there, played his college basketball there, has tremendous roots there to the community. So to be able to channel that, to be able to send the message as far as what he stands for, what Nipsey was standing for, and to continue that, because there's a great relationship between the music industry and basketball. And then Russ is like, this is more personal, and we were able to see that last night. And the only real relevance we can have was most people didn't see Wilt Chamberlain.
Right.
And I guarantee you when Wilt did this, people didn't know what they were seeing. And I believe we're in the same class. We didn't know what we were seeing. Now, we're adding a little more storyline to it because the story behind it and him calling the shot. But I think that Russ will be one of those kind of players that, man, when you look back at his stat lines in 5, 10 years, going to be like, is that real? Was it pace of the game? Like, was the game totally different?
Russ is doing to the triple-double record books what steroids did to the home run record books, where 60 home runs was an untouchable number. And then you look, you're like, wait, Sosa hit 60 how many? 4 times in his career? McGuire hit 70. Bonds hit 73.
But Russ is the only one doing it.
Well, and he's not doing it with steroids. Like, he's not doing it with artificial enhancement. LeBron has 107 triple-doubles in his career, and his biggest skill is his all-around game. Russ has 100 in the last 3 years. He's done it so much, similar to Wilt. The argument I've made on Wilt is if his stats were 20% worse, he might be more respected because they would feel more realistic. If instead of averaging 50, he averaged 45, it might feel like, oh, so maybe somebody can do that again. Russ is so lapping the field in it, we've become numb to it. We've become numb to how difficult it is and how you have to bring it every single night. And see, as an athlete, I think that's the part that I think other athletes respect the most is that every single night he's coming with the requisite intensity to do this on both sides of the ball.
All right, so what about the team? So now where the Thunder sit, they could very easily, if the playoffs end today, they're playing the Warriors. Can they compete with the Warriors? I think it was Vincent Goodwill that came out here and said the one team the Warriors are really concerned about, not the Rockets, but the Thunder. How do these two compete with each other?
This is what the Warriors do. If they are concerned about you, they do what they did to the Nuggets last night. So I don't believe, I like Vince's information. And behind the scenes, because players play against each other, and maybe because Russ and Paul, they bring that edge compared differently to there is no one in Denver, there is no one guy they've had these battles with. I think that in the back of the Warriors' mind, they got a lot of respect for the Rockets because they've lost to them head-to-head. And Harden and CP3, they bring a certain amount of cachet with that organization. So I don't believe that they're worried about the Thunder. I don't believe the Thunder are the threat. They don't shoot the ball well enough. And Russ is not efficient enough in these types of games to be able to defeat the Warriors because he's going to need a lot of help. He's not going to do that. He's going to try to take it upon himself. Now, Paul George, the way he was playing the first 2/3 of the season, they would need that type of performance, but I don't believe Russ is efficient enough on the offensive end to be able to defeat the Warriors.
I don't think OKC could beat the Warriors. I do think the Warriors would be bummed if that's who they draw in the first round because they know they're going to bring it every night. They know they're not going to be intimidated by him. But while right now, if the playoffs started today, yes, it'd be Golden State, Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is tied, same record with San Antonio for the 7th spot. And could Oklahoma City beat Denver in the first round? Yes. Could they? They absolutely could beat the Denver Nuggets in the first round. Now, I don't know that anyone's going to beat the Warriors in the playoffs this year. It might be for everyone, as we said at the beginning of the year. What's your ceiling? For every team, it might be, well, how long until we have to play Golden State? But for Golden State, I think would much prefer play San Antonio, which is a good team, or the Clippers certainly, than have to deal with the Thunder, who we know how good Paul George is, and we know the intensity Russ would bring to the matchup.
That matchup, whoever they're playing in the first round, it becomes very, very important. Because now we go back to last year, them getting bounced in the first round. With Paul George deciding to re-up with Russ, how would you like, as we start this long deal together, you get bounced again in the first round. So, yeah, much respect. 20-20-20. Much respect to all the triple doubles. But, bro, if you get bounced in the first round of the playoffs, your reputation will continue to suffer. There will continue to be the doubters of Russell. Can he be on the champ? Can he be one of the best players on the championship team?
Which is why that game, in addition to the tribute he was trying to do to Nipsey and the individual production, the win was important now.
Sure.
I mean, he went out there, he had 10 assists in the first quarter and was doing everything he could because San Antonio also won last night. They are trying to get to the 7 line to avoid Golden State in the first round, so every win for them is important with a half dozen games left.
All right, we go from the best Russ in the NBA to the best Russ in the NFL. Could Russell Wilson be forcing his way out of Seattle? That's next on First Things First. On Sunday, we head to Bristol for some bumping and grinding on the short track, the Coliseum. The green flag drops 2 Eastern on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. Time for us to go viral. So with LeBron James being shut down for the remainder of the season, the King can focus on connecting with the young Lakers core, starting with having Kyle Kuzma put the chain on for him, which I got. This is hard.
This is great. C does this for me.
Small.
C helps me out with this.
You do it for me? C, he does like those young guys on the team.
This is true friendship.
And
got your chain. It's sometimes hard to get on in the back. Oh, wait, so you guys are such clowns.
Look at that.
The producers of this show are such cowards. They all, if there is ever a question, are you going to emasculate me or Chris Carter? We're at 100% me.
Well,
y'all need to Photoshop me, man. I need a filter, man. Y'all put like 20 pounds on my head.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Nobody likes this Photoshop at this point. But how many jokes have we made about my chain.
Y'all gotta stop.
And now there's actually an instance where you could have Chris doing something he does for me.
Yeah,
By the way, my hands are a little odd there.
I don't wear gold.
Right.
And I don't wear white diamonds. I got black diamonds.
Chris has a beautiful black diamond
Ain't nobody
chain.
wearing gold no more.
My jeweler fixed it for him. The little string broke.
Nick
color's
is still
your
in the
necklace?
80s. Ain't
Is it
nobody
gold?
wearing gold
White,
no more.
gold, and it's a diamond chain. It's not a
Platinum?
necklace. It's a diamond chain. My necklace. What color's my blouse today, Jenna?
Yeah.
Well, your
My
slacks look
goodness.
great.
It's
Time
really,
for
it's really one of
stories.
those candy necklaces.
To
like
start
the
your
girls.
morning, I love those. You get to eat a couple. Brought to you by the unexpected energy of ExxonMobil. Zion Williamson was named to the All-American team, joining his teammate R.J. Barrett, becoming the second pair of freshman teammates on the team. Nick, how impressive was this season overall for Zion?
The season overall was an A+. Now, you gave me a hard time because I gave his tournament a B because it ended early. But the season overall...
Wasn't his fault.
I understand, but when you're the best player on a basketball team, if the team underachieves,
I mean, for a
you
geek,
get
man,
dinged
you're a
little
tough
bit.
grade, man.
Okay, fair enough. But no, Zion was spectacular. People, now be ready for it. Between now and the NBA draft, there's going to be a lot of these takes coming out there. Should Zion actually be the number one? Yes, he should be the number one pick. Is Zion going to translate? Yes, he's going to translate to the NBA. He's got to work on some things, as does every 19-year-old in America in any field.
Right, but I'm going to go back to, like, the first exhibition games they were playing, where they were just filming, like, him in the warm-ups and everything. And if you look at how he grew his game, how he became a little more versatile. And we didn't know he was going to be a defensive force like that. I like the fact that he had some adversity, bounced back from that injury. And I believe sometimes losing, it can be good for a younger player developing.
And one thing that was on the internet, that I know you would have liked, I'm not sure if you saw it. People were saying, should Zion shut it down? Guess what he was doing yesterday at Duke after the tournament? Playing pickup basketball, almost tore a rim down. He gonna be playing basketball.
Oh yeah, astonishing.
Year-round.
Hoopers hooping.
Right.
Oh, astonishing.
What was my mind?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To the NBA now, Warriors beating up on the Nuggets 116-102, led by 28 points out of Boogie Cousins. The win gave the Warriors a 2-game lead over Denver for home court advantage in the Western Conference. KD was also ejected in this one. See, what did the Warriors prove in their win last night over Denver?
Well, they did send the message to Denver. You're not close to us, even though our records have been close throughout the season. Denver easily could have been the #1 seed. So I think that also that they proved with KD getting thrown out, something that Nick talked about, the insurance policy of Boogie Cousins. No one was talking about that. What if someone gets hurt? You'll still have 3 all-star-like performers. Last night, Clay could have took the night off. Like, they have that much talent.
And it also was for Denver. This was a crushing loss. Not just because they're not going to be the 1 seed anymore, but because they were embarrassed. And their best player, Nikola Jokic, got beat up. Bogut went in for a few minutes and was giving him buckets. Jokic could not stay on the court defensively with Golden State. That's going to be a problem for them no matter who they play in the playoffs.
All right, moving on to the Thunder. Big night for Russ. He had 20 points, 20 rebounds, 21 assists in a win over the Lakers. Only the second 20-20-20 game in NBA history, the other one belonging to Wilt Chamberlain. Nick, how incredible was Russ's night?
Well, without context, it would have been incredible. When you add the context that he evidently was gunning for a 20-20-20 game as a tribute to the late rapper Nipsey Hussle and was able to pull it off. I mean, this is the Babe Ruth telling the kid in the hospital, you got to hit 2 home runs for me, and doing it. I don't know how you can call your shot on something that had been done once in NBA history, but Russell did it.
Right, I'm going to try not to be like the public and just get a little desensitized jaded by just how great Russ has been. He's had a couple little things off the court, but Russ is the one player in the league that can do what he did last night. Had a little special touch there as far as Nipsey's concerned. It's nice he's still connected to his community.
All right, finally, moving on to Odell. A lot of hype surrounding the Cleveland Browns since trading for the young wide receiver. Browns are going to compete this year, and one of the teams they'll compete with, the Steelers. But former Brown and current Steeler cornerback Joe Hayden says he can't wait to play against Odell. See, who has the edge in the AFC North here, the Steelers or the Browns?
Man, Joe don't want this smoke. Joe, you don't want this. No, you really don't. Now, Joe has been a good player in this league for a long time, but he's not at the stage where he's a shutdown corner. And the fact that Odell has so much help and the rifle arm of Baker Mayfield, when you're in the one-on-one matchup, man, you want a stud quarterback, someone who can flight the ball so that once you do catch it, that you can make some things happen afterwards. So I just think with the personnel that they have on the Browns offensively And Freddie Kitchens' ability to, which I do believe, because last year I saw his scheme was very, very confident, how he utilized Jarvis Landry, how he utilized the tight end, the running backs. I believe they're going to be very effective running the football. So Odell has a lot of help. This is not just one of those matchups, like, oh, man, I can't wait to play them like it's one guy on one. No, Odell's got a team he's going to be fighting with. And the Pittsburgh Steelers defense hadn't been good for the last couple years. So, Joe, I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't be making these proclamations. I know that when I played with Randy Moss, guys used to say, man, I can't wait to face him. Okay, until they faced him. And then after that, we didn't start hearing so many comments like that. You better give him some respect, Joe, especially with the team and the quarterback.
You said one thing there that we've talked about a lot in the abstract, but not so much about with Odell and Baker, and that is his ability, what his run after catch ability is going to be now that he has a quarterback as accurate and as strong-armed as Baker Mayfield. One of the things that you taught me first about football was the difference in a wide receiver's ability. Obviously, everyone knows a wide receiver is very heavily dependent on the quarterback, but what you talk about the quarterback's ball speaking to you and telling you where you can or can't go if you trust that the quarterback's accurate. I don't know if Odell had that confidence or faith in Eli. I think he will have it in Baker, and I think it's interesting to elaborate what that really means, what it allows for a wide receiver.
Right. It's the same thing that Jerry Rice had. Not only the advantage of the West Coast offense run by Bill Walsh, but he had such accurate quarterbacks. Two of the most accurate in the history of the game in Joe Montana and Steve Young. And one of Jerry's things was you couldn't bump him off the line because he was so quick and he would accelerate. People used to say, well, he doesn't have top-end speed. Well, he had game speed, and he had the ability to be able to separate, and that's what Odell has. It's one of the most effective tools in football for a wide receiver, and it's been effective the last 30 years. If you can catch it, because the less time the ball's in the air or the less I have to game plan for those type of yards, the more the wide receiver can take the heart of the defense. So those are plays that the defense is frightened of. Get that guy on the ground. And I believe that Odell will see the best of him in that area because Baker is great at throwing those in-breaking routes, and Odell, you can't bump him at the line of scrimmage. You can't play single coverage against him, and I believe with the other players they have in that offense, it's going to be hard to double-team him.
And when you have the faith that your quarterback is putting the ball where he wants to, what I don't think Odell had the faith with Eli in, especially after he got his leg broke, was did Eli mean to put it there? I'm going to go up and get it, but did he throw it high because he meant to or just because it went there? When you have the faith that your quarterback is putting the ball where he needs to put it, see, if he puts it low and behind you, it's not because he missed it, because it means you need to
slow down.
Slow down or get down because someone is coming. If he puts it out in front of you and you know he means to put it there, it means free space you can keep running.
Green grass.
Right, and so green grass you can go. So I really believe in Baker. And I think anyone that watched the second half of last season or his time at Oklahoma believes in his accuracy and his arm. Odell's going to find that in very short order.
And that's why I think with AB might have better numbers. But the arsenal for which he's working with, from the quarterback to the couple running backs they have, an outstanding tight end, probably the best number 1-2 receiver in Jarvis Landry that we have in the league. So I think they have a special unit together.
So then let's get back to our question. Who do you think has the edge when these two teams play each
Listen,
other?
I think the Browns are the best team in the division. To me, the Browns have one question mark, and a question mark is not a bad thing. It's just a question mark, and that is Freddie Kitchens as a head coach. We know Freddie Kitchens is a play caller. We know Freddie Kitchens in the short term is an offensive coordinator. But Freddie Kitchens in that room full of 53 grown men as a head coach, does he have the presence, his game day stuff? We don't know how Freddie Kitchens, timeout management, challenge management, the stuff that irks me. Like, we don't know any of that. But talent-wise, the Steelers have a talent question. They know they got the head coach. They know they have the quarterback, but they have a talent deficiency on defense the last couple of years, and now all of a sudden a talent deficiency on offense outside of that offensive line and Juju. The Browns should be the favorites. They have the better players. They have, I think, a quarterback that is approaching eye level with Big Ben. The only question is how they deal with expectations and how the coach deals with the job.
And with Ben having to do more with less, how long is it, Nick, before Baker Mayfield is not the best quarterback in the AFC North?
Right.
I believe that's going to happen very, very soon with the players he's got around him. Also, Stevie Wilkes on the defensive side, coming over from Arizona. How much does he help Freddie Kitchens? I think we need to be able to watch that, because if he can manage the defense and take over the defense and almost allow Freddie's responsibility just besides the head coaching and the press conferences to run the offense like last year, I think there's a better chance for success. So let's watch that defense with Steve Wilkes.
That Steve Wilkes thing's really interesting, not just because he can manage the defense, but also he just was a first-year head coach. Now, it didn't go well for him, obviously, but he can help. When you're a first-time head coach, we've heard time and again, having someone on your staff who has sat in that seat that can tell you, hey, the things Mangini talks about, there's going to be 5 things come on your schedule that you don't plan for, how to plan out your day. Things like that can be super helpful.
What's the other thing Mangini talks about? This Browns team looks fantastic on paper. Let's see what they do when they all get on the field under Freddie Kitchens. All right, moving on to Russell Wilson now. Seattle's all-everything quarterback is entering the last year of his contract and is hoping for a new one. Aren't we all? Late yesterday, we learned that Russell set a date on when he wants said new contract, April 15th, just 12 days away. Also tax day. Also the day the Seahawks will begin their official off-season workout program. Big day all around. All right, Nick, what do you make of Russ imposing an early deadline?
It's really interesting because he imposed a deadline the last time he got a contract, and it was the start of training camp. And that went along with the way the Seahawks have always done business, which is they like to extend players who have a year left on their deal, if they're going to, after the draft, after free agency is fully closed, after they know what their team and their cap situation is. Russ is imposing this deadline before the draft. Russ has given him less than 2 weeks. And then if he were to stay true to his word, they would be in the franchise tag game with Russell Wilson. He would have them over a barrel contract-wise if his contract expires. He would be, if Russell Wilson were to become a free agent, he would be the most important free agent in NFL history. Reggie White's the best, but because of the quarterback position, he would be the best quarterback to ever hit free agency. So Russell is putting some pressure on them. And the precedent would be he's going to become the highest paid player in the history of football. He is a spectacular quarterback. He is an underrated quarterback somehow, at least in my eyes. I think he is, without question, one of the 5 best in the league. If I'm the Seahawks, I pay Russell Wilson $30+ million a year, and I'm happy to do it. But I also, if I do that, I have to look at how I run my team. My offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer, who I felt last year when Russell was 20th in the league in pass attempts, when they ran that playoff game like they had Blake Bortles at quarterback, that when they couldn't run the ball but they refused to pass the ball, if I'm going to spend 15 to 18% of my cap on a quarterback, I'm going to use him. And I think that the only reason you pay a quarterback like that is because you're going to use him. You can't pay him $35 million a year and say, be a game manager. Let one of the best quarterbacks in the league go win you football games if you're going to pay him, which I think they would. You can't let Russell Wilson walk.
Well, an offensive football team can't be run based on who you pay the most money. The way we're going to move the ball down the football field effectively is a collection of the talent we have in the room. So I can't, as a quarterback, I can't expect to get the most out of the quarterback if I have one of the worst offensive lines, which Seattle has had for the last 5 years. So for me, Pete Carroll in his style, for which it's not Brian Schottenheimer, it's Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll said, I'm going to play a style of football that I believe is effective. I believe I do have the quarterback, not only of the past Super Bowl success, but currently and into the future. So I believe right now, because what Seattle was going through was their owner passed away. So right now, the ownership of the team is in a little flux. It's in a trust with the family. So what they're going to do, I believe this slows down Russell. When you decide to give this kind of contract and you don't have the founder of the team there, I believe it makes it more difficult. Now, I don't believe Seattle, for any reason, is going to allow Russell Wilson to walk. It would be, I haven't seen one of the franchise quarterbacks traded that was in the prime of his career. I haven't seen it. Go through NFL history. I just have not seen it. People will say, well, what about Carson Palmer? Well, Carson Palmer had quit on the Bengals. He was like, I'm not going to play.
I'm going to retire if you don't trade me.
Right. So we just haven't seen it. I don't care what the rumors are. You don't let a Russell Wilson out. And it has nothing to do with the pay. He's earned that. He's earned to be the highest payer because it's his time up. How many Super Bowls Aaron Rodgers been to?
been to 1.
Oh, how many Russell been to?
Been to 2.
Oh, okay. We don't even need to keep negotiating then.
And the numbers, and by the way, last year was arguably the best year of his career. He was third in the NFL in passer rating. He was third in the NFL in touchdown passes. He was third in the NFL in touchdown interception ratio. I think he's great.
Right. But this is the thing. You just can't do it. We saw Case Keenum last year. Didn't they give him 20-something million? Oh, so now Denver's got to throw the ball? Well, what Minnesota? We saw the guaranteed money to Kirk Cousins, and we saw them rely on Kirk Cousins, and what ended up happening? People end up criticizing Kirk Cousins. It's about how can I be the most efficient at moving the football down. It's not who has the highest salary. I have to use them more, because if I try to use them more, I put the offensive line in a bad situation.
So why do you think Russell Wilson went to the Seahawks and said, I want this done now, knowing the way the team usually does visit? What do you think it is that he really wants?
Oh,
do you
I think
it's the system that he wants to play
listen,
in?
We've talked about what the pressure outside of football at home for his wife, Sierra, who is a superstar in her own right, and living in Seattle is not ideal for her. We also know that the Giants have all these first-round picks. The Raiders got a bunch of first-round picks, and they're going to Vegas, obviously. And I think he is wanting Seattle to have the conversation we are having right now. Are we going to make him the highest paid player in the history of football, which I'm sure he will happily accept? And if not, would it make sense to do something no one's ever done? To trade a franchise quarterback? Would the Raiders give you all 3 first-round picks for Russell Wilson? And if you're going to run a run-oriented offense that relies on the defense, are you better off getting blue chipper defensively and getting a caretaker quarterback? It's not what I would do. But I also wouldn't have run the ball with my running backs in that playoff game, 20 of my first carries for 31 yards. Like, I would let Russell Wilson be Russell Wilson, and it was odd to me last year that there's a gap in my mind, between throwing it 40 times a game and having him be 23rd in the league in pass attempts. Like, there's got to be a happy medium, and I didn't think they hit that last year, given how talented he is.
It's not like Russell's talented, but give me all these offensive weapons and everything that they're supposed to be blazing through the NFL with.
Doug Baldwin's their best offensive player other than Russell Wilson.
Oh, okay. All right.
And that's correct. They don't have a great number 2. They don't have a great tight end.
All right. Tell me one offensive lineman they got that's dependable.
Dwayne Brown's okay. Dwayne Brown, the guy.
He's okay, and they're paying him better
than okay. Yes.
Okay, so, man, you only got one pie, man. Russell's got to get a huge slice. Now, the rest of y'all need to be able to survive off that, because Russell is the proven commodity in this, and they would be idiotic to get off of Russell Wilson. But I do understand. Everyone's got demands at home. Trust me. Trust me. Everyone. I know this now. I know this, but the business is operated and run. I don't see that family letting Russell Wilson out of Seattle.
All right, we'll break it there. Coming up, why do the Warriors continue to have issues with the refs? That's ahead on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Bart Scott, former Pro Bowl linebacker, joins the show. Hey, Bart, good morning.
You see he's trying to look sophisticated, crossing his legs and stuff, man. Quit Brian Billicking it up.
Can you cross your legs? Is that the problem with them thunder thighs you got? Is that the issue?
Hey, man, listen, I don't
Tell me what's more tight.
I don't skip leg day, chump.
Tell me what's more tight, them legs or that hair up there?
Hey, man, these juicing berries, man.
Sit down.
Juicing berries.
Hey, for you take over my show. Sit down.
Good to see you, Bart.
Nick, man, switching it up, baby.
Let us talk about the Green Bay Packers. Hasn't been a great recent stretch for them. Missing the playoffs the last 2 seasons, dealing with Aaron Rodgers' injuries. New chapter, though, in Green Bay. New head coach, Matt LaFleur. New optimism. LaFleur says he has yet to meet Aaron Rodgers as the head coach, but he said, I know how important our relationship is going to be. Bart, will his relationship with Aaron Rodgers be LaFleur's biggest challenge as the new head coach of this team?
I think earning his respect is going to be his biggest challenge. He's going to have to show his football acumen off the bat, and I think this is going to be more of a partnership. When you're at the stage that, Aaron Rodgers in his career, he's seen it all, he's done it all, and he has a great grasp of how he likes what plays work for him and his skill set. You can hear the stories about him changing the plays at the line of scrimmage with McCarthy. That's because he didn't respect the plays that he was calling. I think they need to get in the room, figure out philosophies, much like when Peyton Manning went out to Denver and he had a meeting, he put in some of the plays that he liked to do as well and kind of merged the philosophies together. But they're going to have more of a run-based type of offense, because in the lead-in, you guys were saying he hasn't been healthy. You have to keep him on the field, and the best ability is availability. They've made some key additions on the offseason to make sure that they can kind of shore up the defense and have a different type of game plan as far as going about winning.
I look at this situation very similar to whomever the next head coach of the Lakers is, which is LeBron's got no choice but to buy in because time is running out. Aaron Rodgers has no choice but to be on the same page with LaFleur because time is running out. Like, even in the Tom Brady era of guys playing to 40 years old, how many prime years do we think Aaron Rodgers has left? 3?
Yeah.
4? Matt LaFleur, he better hope is his last head coach. Because if Matt LaFleur gets fired, it means something has gone terribly wrong over the next couple years, and the Packers aren't competing. Last year was the first year since Rodgers' first year as a starter that he played all 16 games. They didn't make the playoffs. And they weren't close to making the playoffs. They couldn't win a road game. They couldn't beat good teams. Their best win of the year was the first win of the year, the comeback against the Bears, and it was really downhill from there. So the onus is on Aaron Rodgers when he is one of the big reasons that Mike McCarthy is not there anymore. Similar, LeBron's one of the big reasons Luke Walton's not going to be there anymore. You got to make this work. You have to make sure that if he is not on your level football acumen-wise, you find a way to help him get there. And if he is on your level, all the better. But there is an odd way more pressure on Rodgers than LaFleur because Rodgers is the one with a legacy. Yeah. Rodgers is the one trying to climb, trying to cement himself as an all-timer. And how this relationship works is going to have an enormous amount to do with that.
How is it even on the board that we're thinking maybe Matt LaFleur doesn't have the same football acumen as Aaron Rodgers? Shouldn't that have been the first? I mean, if this is going to be their last coach, a guy that would work with LeBron, would work with Aaron Rodgers, wouldn't you expect that guy to be on the same level, at least, if not more?
I like what Green Bay has done from a personnel standpoint. I like the fact that they changed their philosophy, even by going after someone who didn't have experience like Matt LaFleur. Like, I got a lot of respect for that. Now does that carry over to changing the philosophy of the organization? So I know Matt LaFleur knows more football than Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers knows he knows more football because they wouldn't have hired him. That's someone else's job to be able to do that. So you are right on. So that question is answered. The other tough question is well, what about the relationship? I don't believe the relationship between Matt and Aaron is the most important thing. The relationship between Matt LaFleur and those other 52 guys in the locker room is far more important because in private, Matt and Aaron are going to get along. Aaron knows how offenses run. Matt knows how things are done. Matt couldn't do what he wanted to do in Tennessee because he didn't have the talent or they wouldn't relinquish the control. But I believe he's going to run an offense that Aaron Rodgers is going to love. But, Bart, you've been in them NFL locker rooms. It only takes one bad sentence. It only takes one bad game plan to lose the interest of others. See, the reason why, like in the NBA, you mentioned LeBron, NBA players, if you haven't played the game, you better be hellacious on your X's and O's because that's the way you get their confidence. In the NFL locker room, Brian Billiken, man, you got to be able to talk that talk. You got to be able to talk blitzes. You got to be able to talk side adjustments. You got to be able to talk audible system, coverages. Those are the things I know Matt can do. But what he says to the rest of the team on a daily basis is more important than his relationship with Aaron because Aaron's got pressure built in himself to make sure this goes right, Bart.
And when you look at what they did, they retained Mike Pettin because he has head coaching experience. Also, they changing their defense to a 3-4 to change the philosophy. How do you keep the longevity of Aaron Rodgers alive? Is by playing sound defense and running the football. So I think they're going to move more toward that type of philosophy so that they can preserve him and only ask him to be great, in certain times of the game when he has to take over. But let the other 52 players on the team kind of carry you a little bit because when he gets out and he tries to make those off-schedule plays is when he's not been able to be healthy. And we know the drop-off from Aaron to their backup, it's the difference. Kaiser is the difference between, going to the playoffs or winning tight games or losing 3 in a row. So I think that he understands that he's starting to see his mortality, but also he has to fight the perception that he's a coach killer. Because last year what happened is the coach got fired after McCarthy got fired because saying that you got to put some of the blame on 12. So he has to be on his best behavior, make sure that he's a good leader and make sure that this narrative changes that he's a coach killer, he can't be coached, that he's above reproach.
I'm really interested in some of the things you talked about, how a coach can instill confidence in the other 52, what they can do, what they have to say. The flip side of that, What are some of the things that a coach could do, a new first-time head coach, in a team meeting or in a game plan that's going to make that's going to make guys say he doesn't know what the hell he's doing?
Oh yeah.
We had one in Dennis Green. We had 8 Pro Bowlers. I think there were 8 the previous season before Dennis Green took over. And his only pro experience was as a wide receiver coach with Bill Walsh. But people were talking about Northwestern and Stanford. Oh, he can't coach in the NFL. Man, Denny Green, first day, cut about 4 of them Pro Bowlers.
You got to.
It's like, uh-oh. I don't know what he knows, but he knows who's going to be working here or not. So that right there got our attention. And then along the way, man, he had pivotal conversations that let us know, oh, this guy, our football future is in his hands. We can relinquish.
You can trust him.
Yes.
Yeah, but sometimes every time you have a new head coach, it's going to be a point in the season where the team has collectively questions about how do we fix this, what's going on, and man, he better have the answers because they're going to be saying, listen, this is what's going on. He's going to have to be a king of adjustments, game planning. He's going to have to be ahead of scouting, being able to tell guys, hey, this is what you can expect, and they have to be right. If not, they're going to say this guy don't know what he's talking about. If he can't get in front of a room of men, grown men, and lead them, inspire them, like he's going to lose them early. He's going to have to cut some of these guys. That's why a lot of head coaches, first-time head coaches, cut a bunch of guys because they want to get a bunch of young guys in there that they can scare straight.
And that's when the veterans become important. Even if Aaron and him aren't on the same page, Aaron could help him in those messaging point with the other guys. That's where you have to depend on that locker room to build help out a young coach.
Right, what Rex did for me, and when Rex came over, he brought a bunch of guys from Baltimore with him so we can be extensions of him in the locker room because you got to sell this message that he knows what he's talking about. LaFleur, I don't know if he had that background.
All right, we'll break there. Bart, we'll see you a little bit later on the show. Coming up, why do the Warriors keep feuding with the refs? Next on First Things First. Welcome back. So on Sunday, Michigan State took down #1 overall seed Duke. Friend of the show and frequent viewer of the show, Tom Izzo, advanced to his 8th Final Four. Joins us here on First Things First. Coach, it is a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for getting up and hanging out with us.
I've been up for a long time, Jenna. I'm like you guys. I watch you every day, and I like to say hello to Nick and Chris, and thanks for having me on.
We love having you here. All right, so, Coach, this is the 8th team you've now taken to the Final Four. Talk about this team. What makes this specific team unique?
You know, they have an incredible connection between them. It's almost like when one moves, they all move, and that's kind of unique. And the team's chemistry is great, but the connected part of it, if one guy screws up, the other guy helps. And we've got a great quarterback. And as Chris knows, if you got a good quarterback, it makes up for a lot of other things. And I say that Cassius is my Tom Brady. You know, you can plug in different receivers. Guys get hurt. You move different guys around. And he finds a way to make it work. And that's a great trait for a quarterback or a point guard.
Coach, I know how much you love football. You probably wish you were an NFL coach or a top college coach compared to being a college basketball coach. Kind of odd to have all the success you've had and wish you were something else. But give us a little insight. You and I talked before the Duke matchup, and you were concerned about how much of overwhelming talent and skill that they had. What was the game plan when you go in against a #1 seeded Duke, #1 seeded in the tournament, and you believe I'm not as athletic as them? What are the things that you have to take away from a team like Duke, Coach?
Well, you know, I love Zion Williamson. I really did. I mean, I think you guys would appreciate him when you get to see him in person. It's not the physicalness. He plays with some passion. He has some toughness to him. He seemed like an incredible teammate. And I knew we couldn't cover him one-on-one. I couldn't get Khalil Mack to come and join us that day. So I decided that we went with, you know, we call it the 6-eye rule. Every time he caught the ball, there had to be 6 eyes on him. And we kind of shrunk the gaps. We held him to 20-some, which doesn't sound great. But I thought we did a decent job on him, not letting him get too many dunks, breakaway dunks. We didn't turn the ball over. You know, in any sport, that's very, very important. And I thought that was the difference in a great Duke team and a very well-coached team and one that deserved all the accolades they got all year.
Coach, I want to stick with Zion just for a moment because he's such a big topic of conversation. How do you think his game will translate next year to the next level?
Well, like every college player, he's going to have to make adjustments. What I liked about him is he's got really the base that you want. He's a tough kid. He's a passionate kid. He plays with emotion and energy. And I've seen him get better as the year went on. You know, he wasn't a very good shooter. He hit a couple threes against us. I mean, he's going to have to improve his shooting. He's got an incredible, Cris would love his first step. He's got an incredible first step. I mean, one dribble and he's going at it. I'll give you an example. Kenny Goins, the kid that made the shot, got one blocked earlier. And in the huddle, I said, Kenny, why didn't you pump fake him and then shoot it? He said, Coach, he was 15 feet away from me. I thought I could get it off. And that's what makes that kid so good. He's good defensively and he's good offensively. But like all college guys, he's going to have to improve because just being an athlete doesn't make it in the NBA.
Coach, I'm sure you'd love to just sit back, relax, and sort of bask in what you guys have accomplished already. But I would imagine that you turned the page already from that celebration of Sunday's win to preparing for Saturday's game. When was that? When did you make that turn?
Well, I said we were going to enjoy the plane trip home. We got home about 1 o'clock. We had a little staff meeting at about 1:30 and started preparing. The one thing I learned early in these Final Fours is by Monday, tickets and hotels have to be done because those are the biggest problems. I heard Cris talk about the distractions of a Super Bowl. It's kind of like that. You know, you have to get all those ancillary things done. My first year, I think as the ball was tossed for the tip on Saturday night, I was finalizing my last 2 ticket requests in hotels. So that changed now. That's the only thing my experience helps me with. So we did that. We got a little bit of information on Texas Tech. And then by Monday morning, you know, we moved ahead. But I did want the players to enjoy the night. So we got one night to enjoy it.
Coach K talked about losing to you and Cassius Winston being, we know, named first-team All-American, but being the best point guard that they faced. How much confidence do you have? Because, Coach, you don't give out overall praise to some of the greatest of the greats. We know that Magic Johnson, his relationship with the program is very, very a very, very close relationship. But you compared his vision of the court to the great Magic. Now, Coach, you're going to have to explain to me, because Magic is the best passer of the basketball. You said he has the best vision in the state of Michigan since Irvin Magic Johnson played for Sparty.
Well, you know, I've had some great point guards. Mateen Cleaves, of course, was the guy that led us to a national championship. But Cashin has this vision where he can really see the whole court. He's not lightning quick. He doesn't have the size or the strength, you know, and yet he has vision. He has the mental ability to see things. And, you know, I have watched a lot of quarterbacks in your league, and, you know, that's the difference. It's not can they get the first read, it's the second, the third, or even the fourth. And that's kind of what he can do. They take away one thing, he knows where he's going next. He knows where he's going the third time. And I'm not comparing him to Magic, Cris. I said he has Magic Johnson qualities and his ability to see the floor. And I think Irvin would say the same thing.
All right, in a season dominated by freshman, Coach, the freshman in the Final Four that actually averages the most points is your guy, Aaron Henry. Aaron Henry obviously was in the news for a different reason earlier in the tournament. We talked about on this show, talked about on every show. I'm curious what your reaction was to not just the media coverage of what was not a super atypical Tom Izzo moment, but the way your former players almost universally rushed to your defense saying, we know who Coach Izzo is. We know what he allows us to do and what we allow him to do. So your reaction to the media coverage of it and your former players' discussion of it.
Well, I understood it, Nick. I mean, I really did. It's a 5-second blip, you know, that's 5 seconds. You know, when you have a 30-second timeout, you don't have a lot of time to negotiate, and nobody knows what went on before that, what was said, or after it. But my relationship with Aaron Henry, I mean, I think everybody would agree I have a very close relationship, so I spend time with players. Time is something that not all of us have, and that's a priority to me. So guys know where I'm coming from and what it's like. I was a little bit amazed by it, but this day and age, you know, I'm not a big Twitter guy. This day and age, everybody jumps on. The haters will be haters. The lovers will be lovers. I'm just going to coach my team. And as long as my players understand where I'm at, and could I make an adjustment or two? to pacify guys like you, Nick, who I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Can I do that? Sure, I could do that, and I'll try to do a little better job because, in all honesty, I represent a university. I don't want to offend anybody, but I also got a job to do, and the job supersedes everything. Take a 30-second timeout and try to get a lot of points across. If someone isn't maybe listening or doing the things you need done, once in a while, as Jed Heathcote says, the games make fools of us all, but it is blown out of proportion. If you knew the other 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 30 seconds, it's all good.
I want to follow up on the one-and-done dichotomy between all the Final Four teams and then the teams that have been the story of the year, most notably Duke. We now, obviously, Duke won a championship a few years ago with a bunch of one-and-done kids, but we are now going to have fourth straight champion that is a veteran, senior-laden team. Talk to me from a coaching perspective, because you've coached some great one-and-done kids, but the pluses and minuses of when you go into a game with a veteran-laden team that might not have the raw talent of a team with a bunch of potential lottery picks, but who are 19 years old, the development for the guys that are 20 or 21 compared to the 19-year-olds, and how that applies to you as the coach.
Well, as we all know, the difference between 17, 18, 19, and 20 is not just a year. It's a lot of experience. Your first time you move away from home, you get to college, experience a Final Four, that's something in itself, But I love Miles Bridges. I love Jaren Jackson. Those guys were great, and I think we had a decent mix around them. But our team was pretty young last year, too. We had some sophomores like Winston and Ward and a freshman like Xavier Tillman who really weren't as experienced as they are now. I think that's helped this team. It's good to have great players. I think we all need them. But I think if you look at Villanova, Jay Wright has found a way to get old and yet get very good. And so sometimes you got to find some superstars, but I think you got to mix it in. You got to have some players that are good enough to be great, but yet not quite great enough to be gone immediately. And if you got the balance of that, it's good. I don't think you're going to win just with a bunch of really good players. You got to have some stars. That's the nature of the beast. But if you got a good culture, they all work together, and you got to have some balance.
That's what we did on the show here. We had one superstar, and then these two guys just sort of compliment me on the outside coach. So that's how I like to. So we built the show from the inside out. Hey, I asked you earlier when you made the turn from what has happened to the Final Four to Texas Tech. When do you have that conversation with the team? When do you sit down with the team and say, okay, what happened, now we really have to focus? How do you get them to keep the distractions out, to focus on the Final Four? And then when you tell them what has impressed you most about Texas Tech, what to look forward to and what to expect from the team?
Well, it was Monday. Monday we had film sessions, a little bit of a walkthrough, and then a ticket, hotel, parent, girlfriend, all the distractions that go along with it. And thank God, it has been my 8th trip. I've had a couple of assistants that have been there 4 or 5 times. I have one player, Kenny Goins, who was a redshirt guy when we went in 15. And so I let everybody talk a little bit. But there's nothing like getting there. You get to a football dome, and Minneapolis got an incredible place to play. I've been to the arena or to the stadium. And that'll be another thing. When we were in Detroit a few years ago, there were 35, 40,000 people at our practice. And I saw a lot of wide eyes, So that's the next thing we got to address when we get there, how to handle it all, how to handle all the media. But, I can give them help, but until you do it. Now, the one thing I like about this team, Cassius is so opposite of me. He's so even-keeled. I'm a little more up and down. But Cash is very even-keeled. He is the leader of our team. As the head goes, the body follows. I got a pretty good head right now, meaning him, and I'm hoping the rest of the guys follow him.
I know we only have time for a couple more quick ones, Coach, but we'd be remiss if we don't ask about Jarrett Culver. It's going to be the second straight game you guys go up against a top 5 pick. Zion's going to go 1. Culver might go 3. People just don't know about him because he plays in Lubbock. He has been sensational. How do you slow down Jarrett Culver, who is a superstar in college basketball?
Well, you're right about that. That couldn't be said better. I think Chris Beard has done an unbelievable job with this team. We've had some pretty good defensive teams, Michigan and Purdue, and ourselves are pretty good. But I do think they take it up a notch. And Colbert is, he is maybe the best two-way player I've seen. I had a kid, Gary Harris, a few years ago who could get you on offense and he could make an impact on defense. Most great scorers are not great defenders. This kid can score it, he can defend it, and he can rebound it, and he can run. That's a combination on why you're a top 5 pick. So I think, we're going to have our hands full. It's going to be it won't be just a one-man job. We'll have 4, 5, 6 eyes on him at times. But they run that Bobby Knight motion, and, Cris is a disciple of Bob, and there's a lot of similarities. Thank God I was in the league when Bob was here. So I think I'll be able to help our guys. But at the end of the day, as we all know, players play the game. And so we're going to have to make sure our players are really homed in. And he would be one of the big keys for sure.
Coach, we really appreciate your support. Supporting the show. We know you're a frequent viewer of the show. You and Lupe and the family. I know you and your son. You drive him to school and everything, listening to the show. We greatly appreciate it. You have our support in Minneapolis, and spring football's right around the corner. So get yourself another championship, man. We can get on to the real game of football, which I know is your favorite.
I'm going to have my boy Mooch coming in for the game, so I'll still have a little football flavor to it, but you're right, Cris. Coach D says the same thing. He was at the last 2 games. He's coming up there. It's getting near spring football time, so we might as well finish off a good basketball season and see if we can make it last 2 more days.
Love it. And, Coach, next time you're in New York, come hang out with us here. We'll always find
no, Coach, if you win, you promise me, right? You promise me if you win, you're coming to New York to the show, right?
I'm there, guys. I appreciate you. Thanks for all the support. Hey, Nick, the good news? We didn't have to play Syracuse this year because they've been a little bit of a thorn in my side. That's the only reason I don't like you as much as I like the other 2.
That's great.
So, yeah, because you always beat the brakes off his school, Ohio State. I understand that entirely. Thank you so much, Coach.
Oh, I tell you what, you're the only non-athlete in that bunch, so be careful.
That's enough.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.